Hey everybody, it's Andrew Martin, the Spiritual Rebel, coming to you with a new video on Sunday, August 23rd. Happy Sunday. I can't believe that it is almost September. My birthday is less than a month away, and the holidays are right around the corner. Summer is winding down, and it's just amazing to me that we're already kind of in the home stretch of this year. But I hope that wherever you are, that you're happy and healthy and smiling. Today's today's topic is a pretty meaty, chunky, chewy topic. So I'm definitely going to take my time to let this one unfold. This is one that I've had kind of brewing for a couple of days. And, it's been something, again, spurned on by my own experiences, which, I'll probably share with you just as an example of my own life and how these teachings are relevant to me. Because I think that, our own experience is always how we can show and teach others. So if you see a lot of weird editing in this one, it's only because there's probably going to be large spans of time where I'm just letting the information come through. Amar has been, sending me kind of the insight and the guidance on this one for a couple of days now. And that's been an interesting development in my own gifts, is the channeling that I do is becoming more and more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like when I used to do channeling and I would go into kind of my space that I would do to channel and, would let Amar come through, that seems to have really kind of collapsed in terms of there really is no separation now. And it's kind of just like a constant stream and a flow when I tune into it, that it doesn't really feel like a separate thing anymore. It's almost like I kind of always have, access to the live stream of the wisdom and the love and the insight. So my point is that the information has been coming through for a couple of days, and I've been trying to figure out, like, how can this be a video and how can I deliver this message? And so I've known that, it's just a matter of time before it was time. And this morning I knew that it was time. So if I have these weird long lapses of time, I may edit them out. So if you see a lot of sort of, seems kind of choppy in the editing, it's only because I'm editing out the gaps where I just sit and and sort of ponder. So what I want to talk about today is the divine mind. And these energies that we've been swimming in since 2012 especially. I always use 2012 as a marker because not only was that a huge marker in terms of the shift and really the beginning of this era that we are in right now, but 2012 personally for me was the year when this all consciously started for me, and my awakening really, really went into overdrive. Of course, now I can look back and see that it had been happening since probably the mid-90s. And on some level, it has always been, part of my life since forever, since I was born in this lifetime. But I speak of 2012 as sort of the starting point or the beginning point because I know it was a huge shift for myself, but also a lot of people. And in terms of the consciousness and the awareness of some sort of ending, beginning, new shift, new reality, new version of ourselves in the world, 2012 was kind of the time when, in terms of the mass consciousness, really became aware of it. So since 2012, when these energies really kind of kicked into overdrive and started coming in, the whole point of this has been these powerful, massive energies that were all love. That's really, when you boil it down to it, it's all just love. And each kind of wave of energy had a different aspect of self or of the collective or the individual that it was kind of tuned to, right? But it's kind of like colors on the spectrum. They're all colors, right? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. If you look at the main colors on the spectrum, they're all color. They're all frequency. But some of them just have a different vibration and a different frequency. So it's the same thing. All of these energies that have been coming in for the past 3 years, they're all love. It's just there were kind of different layers or different intensities or different, they had a different focus or a different speciality. But in the end, they were all love. But the whole point of all of this has been to awaken individuals and the collective and humanity and the planet to seek a heart-centered existence, to seek the wisdom of the heart and the realignment of the heart as the primary brain of the body. Really, the heart is the one that is stepping into its mastery, and the heart is the one that is stepping into the role of guide and sort of the one driving the bus, which really is the resurrection of the divine self and the true self in each person, which is the whole metaphor for, the resurrection of Christ and the return of Christ. It's not really literally Jesus coming down as a man to walk on the planet again. It's the Christ consciousness. Christ consciousness is a frequency. And that is what this whole thing has been about, is the resurrection of each of us as our own master of our own life, our own experience, and in turn the community and the collective and the planet living through our hearts. But what has been required in order for this to occur is all of the other systems in the body. If you think of the chakra systems and the energy centers, it's mind, body, spirit. So the body has been cleansed and has been purified, and that's what a lot of what's going on right now is people having these weird symptoms, and we all talk about ascension symptoms, and if you haven't read up on it, I encourage you to Google ascension symptoms, and as always, use your discernment, keep what resonates, discard the rest. All that is important for you to pay attention to is the stuff that resonates as true for you now. So the body has gone through this transformation. It's been the awakening of the heart to come back into its role as master of our existence and our experience, and the one that really is leading us, because I've said this before, the wisdom of the heart is impeccable. The heart is the portal to the divine self. The heart is the gateway to the true nature of who we are, which is eternal, infinite, divine beings, God in human form, creator, source energy in a body, in a package. And the biggest part of this for most of us, for myself, absolutely without question, has been the mind transforming itself from the small mind, the mind that believes that it is separate, the mind that believes it is the one in charge, the mind that believes that logic and rational reasoning, ABC 1, 2, 3, all of this practical sort of approach is the king of all things. And that if it's not logical or rational, or if it can't be seen, touched, tasted, felt, whatever, that it's not real, or, this very limited idea of reality and our existence that the small mind perceives, that it is separate, that it is the only one, that there has to be a winner, that there has to be, only one person can win, the strong survive, the weak shall perish, all of these very separate, illusory perceptions of who we are and what we are here to do. That's all the small mind. But transforming the small mind to the divine mind, this has been the fucking trick. I mean, this is it. This is it. This is what so many of us are dealing with right now, and myself absolutely included. And as these energies come in, and as these energies, because the divine mind is not an adversary. This is so important for us to understand. The divine mind is a co-creator with the heart. The divine mind takes its command, really. The divine mind acquiesces and sort of genuflects and surrenders to the wisdom of the heart, because the divine mind understands that the heart's guidance and wisdom is impeccable, always without question. And the divine mind knows this, and so it says, okay, the heart is in charge, the spirit, because the heart is the portal for spirit made manifest in the physical reality. So the heart is the one in charge. And then comes the mind and the body, right? So the body serves the mind and the mind serves the spirit. Spirit says, okay, this is what's going to guide us in the direction of that which we desire, the truth, the love, the light. And then it says, okay, mind, this is what we're going to do. And the mind says, all right, yes, let's go. And then it gives, the body the marching orders. And so it, spurs us into action. The divine mind knows this, but the small mind is still in resistance. And so because the small mind still thinks that it's the one in charge, the small mind says, well, I need a plan and I need to know and I need proof and it's got to be scientific and it's got to be empirical and it's got to be practical. And it just really is so futile. Because the only thing in the end, the heart guides us by our feeling, and the heart says your natural state is one of joy, one of freedom, one of flow, one of faith, one of trust, one of knowing, one of being empowered by the truth of who you are. And so just trust me, the heart says, and I will lead you to that. You are creating with me and through me, and the big part of who you are, the true self, the divine self, the real self, is speaking to us and working through us and is resurrected through our heart. And so when we trust the guidance and the wisdom of the heart, it's always impeccable. Now, that doesn't mean that there won't be things that we are called to do that make us uncomfortable or that feel a little uneasy or that we haven't done before, so we're not used to it, so we're scared or insecure or whatever. But it is trusting that our faith in the wisdom and the guidance from our heart is more important and is given more credence than the fear and the doubt and the insecurity. It's not saying that we won't have fear, doubt, and insecurity. That is part of this process as we shift into living through the divine self and the divine mind. There will be those doubts, but it's simply kind of rewriting or sort of purifying through the expansion of these energies, the small mind. So the divine mind knows that all it has to do is trust the wisdom of the heart and take the inspired action that comes via the heart, and everything will continue to move in the direction of that which we desire. The small mind thinks that it has to have a reason, and it has to have empirical evidence, and it has to have proof. And ultimately, the clarity and the truth and the joy that we seek is always, that guidance is always coming to us through our heart. And the heart says, just trust me. Just trust me. Because I am moving you in the direction of what you want. Your high self is speaking through me. The heart is the instrument of the divine. The heart is the portal. It is the broadcaster. It is the transmitter of the divine frequency. And when we follow the wisdom of the heart, we are always guided in the direction of that which we desire. It is only when we decide from the control and the fear and the doubt of the small mind, that's what gets in the way of it. Because the small mind says, well, I need proof. I need to understand why I keep... So here's the thing. When we have patterns that emerge, because this is what's happening, as these energies come in and they expand us to new levels of being and new levels of awareness and trust and faith and all of these wonderful things, as these energies expand, these old ideas and these old patterns and these old stories are being flushed out of the vessel. It's like if you have, and I've talked about this before, if you have, let's say you have a big, clear plastic or clear glass container of water that's filled with sediment and mud and muck. And all you do is you turn on the tap of the pure, clear, filtered water, which represents, the stream of the love and the energy that are coming in. All we need to do is let that energy come in, and as it fills the container, then that sediment and that muck and that mud will eventually be just pushed out by the clear, clean water and the pure water, and the rest of the stuff just goes. And so that's what happens as these energies come in and they expand us into new levels of being and awareness. All of that stuff comes up and passes through our awareness, and the mind says, well, I need to understand why we don't do this anymore, and I need to understand what is the reason behind this. Why do we do this? And ultimately, when we have old patterns and old beliefs and old stories that are coming up for our acknowledgement, merely to be acknowledged as they pass through our awareness, not to be experienced again, not to be engaged again, because that's the trick, is the mind says, well, why do we think this way? And why has this always been a trigger for us? And why have we had a problem with this in the past? As if somehow understanding it will change the fact that all we have to do is trust our feelings. If there is something that we are considering doing, engaging, okay, so I'm going to give you an example, make this clearer. And I've talked about this before, in the past, one of my favorite things for not dealing with my issues and not facing my life, and one of my favorite disempowering things was sex. And there's nothing wrong with sex, but the reason that I used sex a lot in the past was because it helped me to numb my feelings and avoid dealing with my stuff and really asserting myself from a loving, empowered place where I valued myself and I really saw myself in the truth of who I was. And I used to use sex as a way to validate myself externally, make myself feel better, and it was just a Band-Aid. It was an emotional, energetic Band-Aid, and that's all it was. So recently, don't you know, in the grace and the perfect understanding of the universe, I have had a lot of my old friends, paramours, fuck buddies, let's just be honest, have been reaching out to me just out of nowhere, like texting all of a sudden and emailing all of a sudden. And there have been moments over the past just randomly out of nowhere, they have been coming up. And it's interesting because this has also been aligning with my own internal work that I've been just kind of processing, is my old beliefs and old stories about sex and intimacy and love, because they're all tied together for me. And so these old buddies have been hitting me up out of nowhere, looking to, have some fun. And initially I would get the text and my immediate response would be like, no, that doesn't feel like who I am anymore. I am not judging these people. I am not judging the act of sex. I am just saying that for me, it doesn't feel like me anymore. It doesn't feel truthful. It doesn't feel honest. It doesn't feel joyful. It doesn't feel happy, exciting. It feels conflicted. It feels small. It feels afraid. It feels needy. It feels disempowered and dysfunctional. And the divine self, the divine mind says, well, that's all you need to know. If it doesn't feel good, then that's all you need to know. Because the divine self, the true self, does not seek to defend. It does not seek to explain. It does not seek to justify. It doesn't even seek to understand, because it doesn't matter. Because all that matters is, if this conflicts with my freedom, my joy, my expansion, my ease, if this doesn't feel like, oh no, that's just not a good thing for me, then that's all I need to know. But the small mind says, no, we need to understand why. Why do you feel this way? Why don't you want to be with these people? Why don't you want to let this guy come over? Why don't you want to engage again? Why don't you want to go down this path again? What is it, Andrew? What is the story? What is the reason? What is the understanding? What is what do we need to know? Let's get in here and let's experience it and let's know. And that is the bullshit, because if you follow that logic, at the end of that logic is the only way for the small mind to understand why is to engage with it again. So when I trust the divine self, the divine mind says, well, the heart says that it's not good. The heart says that this is not in alignment with who we are now. So the divine mind says, I take my instruction from the heart. And the heart says no. So the divine mind says, okay, cool, no, delete, don't respond, or, no thanks, or not interested, or whatever. But the small mind still thinks that it's the one in charge. So it thinks that its need to know and to experience and to justify and to clarify and to qualify and to quantify is the most important thing. And that is the illusion. That is the trick. Because all we need to do is trust the feeling. If it doesn't feel like the truth of who we are, that's all we need to know. Because in the end, if we follow the fucking hamster wheel, habit trail, wild goose chase leading us down the primrose path, red herring of the small mind, the only thing that's going to happen is we're going to reach the end of an experience. We are going to engage with the old pattern and the old belief and the old story. And at the end of it, when we are just exhausted and worn out from the back and forth and the war of the mind and the heart, and knowing that it's something that we don't want to do, but we do it anyway, and we don't know why, and then we end up feeling guilty and we end up beating ourselves up for it, we always come back to the same conclusion, which is this is not good for me, and it does not matter why it is not good for me, because all I need to know is that when I follow the feeling of feeling free and expansive and joyful, which is what the heart is always leading me towards, it doesn't matter why. The old logical, rational, let's prove it without a doubt is bullshit. Because in the end, all that does is lead us back to the place of, it's just not good for me. And so the mind, the small mind, in its effort to maintain its place of superiority, because that's what we have trained it to believe, it's going to lead us down the primrose path and the wild goose chase. And in the end, all we do is end up realizing that it just doesn't make us feel good. And all we want is to feel good. Abraham Hicks says this all the time. The only reason any of us ever wants anything is because we believe we will feel better in having it. And so when we consider an option or a choice, and our initial impulse and instinct is, do I want to hook up with this dude that I used to hook up with all the time? No. Done. No. No is the answer. No, I don't. I don't need to know why. I don't need to experience it again to know that I don't like when I go into this energetic space of seeking validation through other people. My value as a person does not lie outside of me. My truth as a person does not lie in the opinions or the justification or the approval of others. My freedom does not lie outside of me. My freedom comes from trusting the impeccable wisdom and guidance of my heart. Period. And I could go around and around for the next 20 years trying to figure out why, but ultimately it does not matter. And that's where the faith and the trust comes in, is I have faith and I trust the wisdom of my heart as impeccable. And so when I have faith and trust in the wisdom and the guidance of my heart, the why doesn't matter. Because ultimately, what's the why? Why? Because I seek joy and freedom and truth and expansion, and my heart knows this, and that's what it is moving me in the direction of. And my high self, the true self, who I really am as divine, eternal, infinite, and powerful, does not seek anything other than its natural state of empowered, loving, truthful creation that is full of integrity with who I know myself to be. And so when a choice presents itself that is opposite of that truth and that love and that light and that integrity and that expansion, it feels like shit. So all I have to know is that if it feels like that, then I'm not going to do it. And engaging and arguing and going back and forth and trying to justify my choices and my reasons to someone in my past who was not in alignment with the truth of who I know myself to be now, girl, that's like an endless battle of going around, and the only thing that is at the end of that path is frustration, sadness, depression, anger, feeling wiped out and worn out because I allowed myself to go around and around and around, trusting the small mind and letting the small mind believe that it was the one in charge and asserting itself back into the position of power in my life. And the divine mind is not an adversary. The divine mind is a partner. The divine mind is a co-creator and says, I trust the heart. I trust the heart. And I take my inspiration, my instruction, my motivation, and my call to action from the heart, because the heart is the portal to the true divine self. And the heart says, you want amazing, mind-blowing sex? Well, I can get you that too. And I guarantee you that it doesn't lie in the hands of someone that makes you feel funky and off and weird and wonky. And it has nothing to do with them. It's all about how I choose to engage with them. And so my behavior Sure, I can sit and I can hash it out and try to understand it until I am blue in the face. But ultimately, on the other side of the understanding, the reality is that it just isn't who I am now. And if I choose the truth and the wisdom and the clarity and the love of the heart of the true self, eventually that understanding and that knowing just kind of manifests itself anyway. And so it's not about going through our lives with a completely, sort of head in the sand, oblivious to anything, all things point of view. It is saying that the heart will always guide me in the direction of what I want and what I need. And the understanding that I seek is on the other side of that. And it will manifest and show itself to me in the right way, in the right time. And I will be given the clarity that I seek because the clarity is always there. The truth of the heart is only clarity. It's only love. It's only success. It is only trust. It is only faith. It is only joy. That's all it is. So as we are going through our days, and especially leading up to the end of September, which, I've talked about this before. The end of September, I know a lot of people freak out and they're like, what's going to happen? Is the world going to end? But, no, this is just an energetic marker. It is just a point to say this is sort of the progress that we've made. And certainly the energies are going to peak. And as we are building up to them, what is happening with a lot of us is these old, really, really deeply entrenched patterns are coming up for review again. And really not so much review as it is they're just passing out of our awareness and out of our existence and out of our vibrational body. And so as they pass through on their way out, we are just made aware of them again. And so the small mind kind of kicks back into overdrive. It's like an old program that is momentarily reactivated and says, oh, here we go again. No, you just trust that as these things pass through our awareness, we just need to acknowledge them and bless them on their way out. It's like a visitor that you haven't been able to get rid of and it's been hanging around and it's finally decided to leave. And you just say, good luck, bless you on your journey. Thank you for all you have taught me, and I am so happy you're leaving. And the resurrection of the divine mind as a servant to the heart, which is the portal for the divine self, is what we are moving into and what we're going through right now. And so it is just understanding. It is just understanding that all we need to do is trust the feeling resonance of the choices and the decisions that are before us. And the why isn't as important as the what. And the what is, what does it feel like? How does it feel when I weigh one decision against another? The one that is correct for me is the one that feels the most expansive and the most free. And that's all we need to know. So I hope this helps. We just got to trust that the divine mind is resurrecting itself and the small mind is just kind of being decommissioned. And we are allowing the small mind to evolve and to transform into the divine self, into the divine mind. Because really the direction that we're moving is there is no separation. Mind, body, spirit is just, it's one thing. And the flow of this energy through us and allowing this energy of the high self and the true divine self to be the guiding force in our lives, eventually it all just sort of coalesces and converges into one big thing, which is the true nature of who we are, and the lack and the realization that there is no separation between us, our high self, anybody else, anything else, that it's all consciousness. It is all just consciousness working through us and making itself manifest through our lives, our choices and our actions. And so all we have to do is trust how we feel. So I know this is going to be a long one. It's about half an hour, but I hope that this helped. I know it's been something that's been on my mind the past couple of days, and I'm like, why the hell are all these old yahoos coming out of the woodwork all of a sudden? And it's just so that we can love the versions of ourselves that need the love the most. And for me, it's been all about men and money. So, as always, I thank you for watching. Go to my website, check me out there, take a look at the services page. Just a reminder that all of my services have been reduced in price. I do have a class coming up here in Seattle, September 5th at East West Bookshop, the Accessing Spiritual Guidance class. It's a Saturday. It's from 3:15 to 6 p.m. It's $30. It's a fucking deal. This class is amazing. I taught this class in LA, and I've done a teleclass version of it as well, and everybody's had an amazing, powerful, life-changing experience. So you can call East West Bookstore directly and sign up there. All of my social media stuff is on my website. You can also use my calendar to book a session with me. I would love to work with you. I know I can help you. I know I can kind of help you make some sense of this and help guide you through whatever it is that you're going through right now. That's it. Have a fabulous Sunday. I love you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.